Chapter 1339. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Battle Dragon Emperor. At this moment, Su Yan was incomparably furious. Yun Wanqing was his wife, but she was being exploited by the Dragon Emperor. Although her life was not in danger, Yun Wanqing's origin source was being depleted by the Dragon Emperor. Human race's sacred master, I have no intention of making things difficult for you, nor will I hurt your wife. Leave now, and I will not pursue your crime of trespassing here. His voice was extremely calm. However, for him to be able to say such words was already a form of compromise. If it wasn't for Su Yan's strength being strong enough to threaten him, he would have already taken action and killed him. Hee, how arrogant of you. Pursue my crime. Su Yan's face was gloomy. He released his aura directly, and the powerful energy caused the dragon's tomb to riot. His attitude was very obvious. He would not let this matter rest. These dragons were too arrogant. They thought that they could dominate everything. They had already thought of themselves as the masters of the world. Do you want to fight? This emperor has already said that I won't harm your wife's life. Is that not enough? You have to know that once you trigger a change in the dragon tomb, even if you are a saint venerable, the locals will definitely kill you. His voice rumbled, boundlessly loud. At this moment, Su Yan's body suddenly moved, and he disappeared from the spot. Oh no! Dragon Emperor Hilton immediately realized that something was wrong. He immediately released his energy to seal the surrounding space. However, Su Yan wasn't using the space technique. Instead, he was using the regal sword escape technique. The teleportation light was too fast, and it had already surpassed the limits of space. The moment he released his energy, he had already arrived beside Yun Wanqing and the others. You've been wronged. Come with me now. He did not say anything, and he directly released a wave of energy. The energy surged and shrouded everyone. Stay here. Dragon Emperor Hilton released her dragon aura at this moment. It was extremely difficult for him to dissolve that energy alone. However, the cloudy mist technique that Yun Wanqing and the people of the Heaven and Earth organization had performed could greatly suppress that evil energy, and at the same time, allow him to recover from his injuries. As long as he had more time, he would be able to completely remove the injuries in his body. As long as his strength was restored, there was nothing to fear in the world. But now, Su Yan had saved these people. To him, this was something that he could not accept. Therefore, at this moment, he directly made a move and wanted to repel Su Yan. At this moment, Su Yan's energy translation. Su Yan's translation. After another moment, his body disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared in the next moment, he had already returned to where he was. Yun Wanqing and the others were naturally kept in his small world. At this moment, Su Yan had no intention of staying in this place. This was because he knew very well that fighting with the powerful dragon clan in this place was simply a stupid thing to do. There was an aura in the depths of this dragon graveyard that made him feel extremely uneasy. Therefore, at this moment, he directly headed outside. Stop him! Dragon Emperor Hilton immediately roared, and a powerful and terrifying energy chased after him. As he roared, it seemed that the entire dragon graveyard began to shake. The violent energy surged, and it was extremely terrifying. However, Su Yan's speed was too fast. Even if he was powerful, it seemed that he could not catch up to Su Yan at this moment. However, at this moment, there was no way he could let Su Yan leave just like that. Fortunately, at this moment, the 7 Dragon Kings finally arrived. Set up the dragon formation and kill this guy, Brigadier said directly. Su Yan's previous attack had made him lose face. In addition, he and Su Yan had long been enemies. At this moment, his powerful energy directly emerged, and the violent energy directly attacked Su Yan. He wanted to directly kill Su Yan and completely destroy him. This place was actually extremely disadvantageous for Su Yan because this place was too enclosed and could not be used at all. Well, I haven't had a good battle since I became a sacred venerate. You reptiles are too much. Su Yan's sacred venerate power had been fully unleashed at this moment. At this moment, a demonic shadow suddenly appeared behind his body. The true demonic shadow. Back in the shadow world, his physical body had dissipated, and this demonic shadow had also disappeared without a trace. However, at this moment, Su Yan had become a sacred venerate and defied the heavens to be resurrected, and this demonic shadow also directly condensed at this time. The infinite demon body manifested, and its terrifying power was simply unimaginable. Supreme True Demon Sword. At this moment, Su Yan directly stimulated his power, and the most terrifying aura condensed at this moment. Such a violent power directly manifested at this moment, and the most violent aura reached an extremely terrifying level at this moment. At this moment, Su Yan's power was really terrifying to the extreme. At this moment, his power was rolling, and the endless power and aura reached an extreme level. The dragon's tomb had always been extremely quiet and peaceful, but today was destined to be different. The 7 dragon kings finally condensed their attack. They spat out their dragon breaths and then gathered together. Although they were only dragon kings, when their power gathered, the terrifying aura that erupted was almost incomparably powerful, and could completely contend against the Dragon Emperor. This was a qualitative change. Why did the Dragon Clan always have 7 Dragon Kings? That was because there was a dragon language divine incantation bestowed by the Dragon God. Only when the 7 Dragon Kings gathered together, this dragon language divine incantation could erupt with the most powerful power. At this moment, the violent and terrifying power was constantly rioting, and the boundless power was like a torrential rain. Su Yan's infinite demon body did not retreat in the face of this attack, and directly punched out. At this moment, Su Yan was really violent to the extreme. His figure was constantly flickering, and his powerful and terrifying power was so terrifying. At this moment, the power of darkness directly manifested, and the terrifying power of the dragon language divine incantation condensed by the 7 dragon kings was directly shattered by Su Yan's punch. Bullshit dragon language divine incantation, go to hell. At this moment, Su Yan directly roared, and then his power rushed to the extreme, completely destroying all the aura. You guys want to stop me from leaving too? After becoming a sacred venerate, Su Yan simply had an aura of invincibility. However, at this moment, Dragon Emperor Hilton's power also arrived. Damned guy, I want you to stay in the dragon's tomb and suffer for generations to come. At this moment, his power manifested, and the most terrifying aura directly sank down. Such a berserk power was truly lawless at this time. Everything that was violent at this moment was incomparably terrifying. The infinite demon body's power was extremely strong, but Hilton's attack was definitely not weak either. Supreme Nirvana Slash. At this moment, Su Yan directly unfolded the Taiji sword, and then the terrifying sword chi condensed again. Dragon Emperor, although your battle strength is terrifying, it won't be so easy to defeat me. At this moment, his power directly manifested, and the most terrifying aura directly rolled out at this moment. At this moment, endless power appeared, and this power was really terrifying to the extreme. In the dragon's tomb, the most terrifying disaster seemed to be about to erupt. At this moment, Dragon Emperor Hilton angrily roared, God's descent. At this moment, he actually directly used the forbidden power. Human sacred venerate, I have to admit that you are strong, but this is the dragon's tomb, and you can't be so presumptuous. At this moment, Su Yan frowned, because at this moment, he felt a familiar and powerful power, the power of the dragon god. Summon the power of the dragon god. Back then, he had already seen the power of the dragon god, and it was extremely powerful and terrifying. At this time, although his strength had increased greatly, he was not confident that he could completely defeat it. That's right, it is the power of the dragon god. In the dragon's tomb, the price to summon the power of the great dragon god is much lower. Do you think that the dragon's tomb is so easy to break into? Great dragon of destruction, descend, and directly kill the person who blasphemes the dragon clan. Hilton was also decisive. After fighting with Su Yan, he immediately knew that with his current state, he was afraid that he would not be able to defeat Su Yan, and Su Yan would escape. However, he absolutely could not allow this to happen, so at this time, he directly summoned the dragon god. The powerful power of the dragon of destruction began to descend. At this time, the power that was summoned was far more powerful compared to when they were in the outside world. A terrifying dragon claw appeared above Su Yan's head and directly pressed down. It was unreasonable and overbearing to the extreme. This power was about to directly kill Su Yan. However, Su Yan was no longer the same as before. Now, he was a powerful sacred venerate. Unless the real dragon god descends, I will not be afraid. At this moment, Su Yan directly connected to the power of the small world, and in an instant, his power became even stronger. In the small world, the power of the Dark Ink Lotus burned directly. Dark Ink Lotus armor, appear. The Dark Ink Lotus was the object of the Dark War god, but it fell into Su Yan's small world and was suppressed by Su Yan with the revered sword soul. At the same time, it was refined day and night, and at this time, it had become Su Yan's treasure. When the Dark Ink Lotus armor appeared, Su Yan's aura changed. The power of darkness became even more intense. Sovereign of Darkness record, Dark Extinction. Su Yan used the Sovereign of Darkness record again, condensing it with the revered sword cannon as the core. It simply broke a rule and displayed an extremely powerful power of darkness. Chapter 1340. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Slaying the Dragon Emperor. Such a terrifying power directly clashed with the terrifying dragon claw of the Dragon of Destruction. Woo woo woo. Countless wails were heard. Those were the wails of the dragon's resentment. It was unknown how many remnant wills of the dragon race had gathered in this place. These remnant wills continued to gather at this time and finally turned into a terrifying dragon's resentment. If an ordinary existence had entered this place, they would have been torn apart by these powerful dragons' resentments. However, these dragons' resentments were nothing to Su Yan. Su Yan's strength had long exceeded imagination. His strength was too terrifying. At the sacred venerate level, he was invincible. At this time, even the power of the dragon god of destruction appeared. The will of the dragon god of destruction was so terrifying that it was unimaginable. Every time this will appeared, it was incomparably powerful. Back then, that power fell directly. If not for Su Yan's special means, he would have died long ago. The first time, Su Yan used the will of the great demonic dragon to fight against it. The second time, he used the power of the great demonic god lord. During those two times, Su Yan could not compare to this will at all. However, as time passed, Su Yan's improvement was too fast. This was the third time he met this will. This time, Su Yan would not rely on other forces to fight against the will of the dragon god. He wanted to defeat the dragon god with his own strength. At this moment, his aura suddenly swelled, and the violent power almost reached an unimaginable level. The terrifying power was endless. At this moment, the strongest power had reached the most terrifying peak. At that moment, the world was overshadowed. Endless power surged at this time, and the violent aura immediately reached the peak. Therefore, under this attack, all the dragon's resentment wailed. This was because even the will of the dragon god could not do anything to Su Yan. Dragon god of destruction, unless your true body descends, you can dream on if you want to defeat me with just a will. At this moment, Su Yan directly moved. The power of the Dark Ink Lotus directly emerged. At this moment, Su Yan was no longer the same as before. Fighting with the will of the dragon god gave him an indescribable sense of joy. Perhaps it was because the power from back then was too heavy for him. At this moment, the terrifying aura was still surging. The most terrifying power kept flashing at this moment. It was a kind of spiritual translation. Regardless of the dragon god of destruction, Su Yan at this moment, dragon god of destruction, because he had dared to face his will. His will. Even though this opponent was so terrifying, he didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. Instead, he defied the heavens and fought with him. The dragon's dragon god of Lins was the dragon god of death. At this moment, the dragon emperor dragon translation with dragon translation with dragon translation dragon translation 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 dragon translation. The dragon god of death's will was comparable to that of a powerful dragon emperor. Together with Hilton, there were 2 dragon emperors. The combined power of the 7 dragon kings was comparable to that of a powerful dragon emperor. In this way, there were 3 dragon emperors. At this moment, Su Yan was facing 3 powerful dragon emperors. That was not all. At this moment, Su Yan still had to face the suppression of the dragon's tomb. However, Su Yan did not show the slightest bit of fear, nor did he have any intention of retreating. The dragon race is indeed powerful, but I won't back down. I'd like to see if you can kill me today. The Taiji sword directly floated beside Su Yan. At this moment, his power had reached its peak. At this moment, he was facing this terrifying power, but he did not back down at all. Dragon race, do you really think you can dominate the world? You're just a bunch of worms. At this moment, Su Yan directly mocked, leaving no mercy. In fact, they were enemies, so there was no meaning in leaving any mercy. At this moment, his power surged. Supreme sword teleportation. He shouted softly. In an instant, he disappeared from where he was. In the next moment, he was already in front of Hilton. Supreme Nirvana slash. His power erupted once again. The terrifying power rushed out. Such an aura was simply terrifying. How dare you? At this moment, Hilton was infuriated. Su Yan's actions were clearly treating him as a pushover. However, what kind of existence was he? A powerful dragon emperor. Even if he was injured now, he should not be bullied by a mere human. Dragon light destruction. At this moment, he blasted out an attack. A terrifying power rolled out at this time, and the powerful aura had already reached the limit at this time. Endless power spiraled up at this moment. This was the most powerful attack. At this moment, all the power in the sky was condensing. Su Yan's gaze was constantly circling at this moment. I'm going to kill you. This was Su Yan's declaration. At this moment, there was no meaning in retreating. The only thing left was to kill the other party. At this moment, his power collided with Hilton's attack. The most terrifying power was constantly manifesting at this moment. At this moment, the terrifying power had reached its limit. At this moment, the gaze of darkness fell into the abyss. At this moment, the world seemed to have lost its shadow. However, at this moment, the 7 dragon kings and the dragon gods were struck at the same time. Their power was also extremely strong. Even Su Yan could not ignore them. Su Yan's infinite demon body rushed out at this moment, blocking the power of the 7 dragon kings. As for the dragon god's will, Su Yan ignored it. Damn it! Dragon Emperor Hilton's attack was actually suppressed by Su Yan. However, Su Yan ignored the power of the dragon god's will. He obviously wanted to exchange injury for injury. The body of the dragon clan was supposed to be extremely strong, let alone a dragon emperor. However, Su Yan's body was even stronger. After being reborn in the shadow world, his body had already reached a terrifying level. The power of the demon god's heart was directly integrated into his body. It was the same for the power of the ancestor Buter. Moreover, Su Yan's body was covered with the Black Lotus armor at this moment. Most importantly, Su Yan knew clearly that Dragon Emperor Hilton would definitely not exchange injury for injury with him at this moment. This was because there was an evil curse in his body. If he was not mistaken, the power of this curse came from the 9 underworlds. It was a terrifying power of death. Therefore, even the Dragon Emperor could not withstand such power. He had no choice but to use the Cloudy Mist skill to expel it. At this moment, Su Yan wanted to trigger the evil power in Hilton's body and kill him directly. Roar! The Dragon Emperor roared. However, he still chose to retreat at this moment. This was because if he did not retreat at this moment, his power would be directly shattered. At this moment, Su Yan's power sank again. The power of darkness sank into the shadows at this moment. The endless aura was constantly changing at this moment. An extremely terrifying power manifested at this moment. The aura of darkness had already begun to sink gradually. Fist of Darkness. After using the Supreme Nirvana Rend, Su Yan blasted out the Fist of Darkness again. He wanted to use the power of darkness to trigger the evil power. Ah! At this moment, the Dragon Emperor directly let out a painful roar. He barely blocked Su Yan's power. However, he could not completely block the Fist of Darkness after that. This allowed the power to directly rush into his body. Under the destruction of such power, he was on the verge of collapse. Even he could no longer endure such pain. In the end, the evil power was drawn out. At this moment, Su Yan opened his eyes. He immediately saw an extremely terrifying ghost face in the Dragon Emperor's body. It's actually a terrifying ghost. To be able to cause the Dragon Emperor so much pain, this ghost's strength was evident. However, this was a good thing for Su Yan at this moment. If the ghost's strength was not strong, Su Yan's current situation would be even more dangerous. At this moment, he directly used his power to overturn everything. Su Yan's power was constantly roaring. The terrifying attack had simply reached its peak at this moment. The light of darkness turned into the most terrifying smoke at this moment and suppressed directly. Such power was simply terrifying to the extreme. Endless light flashed at this moment. The most terrifying power between heaven and earth began to gradually disappear. Hilton, do you know that the moment you made a move on my lover, you were already destined to die? Su Yan did not have the slightest scruple. At this moment, he directly attacked to kill the Dragon Emperor. The Taiji sword released the most terrifying light at this moment. The power of darkness had already reached its peak. Boundless power continued to rise at this moment. The power of heaven and earth seemed to have been triggered by Su Yan's attack at this moment. No! Great Dragon God, save me! Hilton was originally not this weak. However, at this moment, the evil power in his body was triggered and immediately caused him unbearable pain. It was also at this moment that Su Yan directly attacked. Su Yan's power of darkness and the evil power seemed to be able to resonate with each other. To him, this was a complete disaster. It was really unimaginable that such a terrifying light would explode directly at this moment. All the power condensed at this moment and turned into the most terrifying light of destruction. Chapter 1341. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. The descent of the dragon god Endless Darkness continued to appear at this moment. The most terrifying light flickered continuously at this moment. In the blink of an eye, the Dragon Emperor had entered the most critical moment. He had no chance of turning the tables with his own strength. Therefore, he could only pray to the great dragon god and hope that the powerful dragon god could save him. The dragon god did not disappoint him. Fortunately, the battlefield he chose was in the dragon tomb. The dragon tomb seemed to have an extremely powerful force that could communicate with the dragon god very well. At this time, the power of the dragon god of destruction suddenly became stronger, and his will almost condensed into a physical body. Between the heavens and the earth, the most terrifying aura continued to spiral at this moment, like a whirlwind. The most terrifying power flickered at this time, and the endless light had reached its peak. Die. The dragon god manifested to stop Su Yan. As expected, you are finally going to condense a physical body at this time. However, I have just said that unless you really come with your true body, you can't do anything to me. At this moment, Su Yan was so overbearing. Even in the face of this terrifying power, he was not willing to back down. His aura directly manifested at this time, and the powerful and terrifying power almost reached its peak at this moment. The boundless power turned into a terrifying whirlwind and directly hit his body. Sword of the Laws, kill. At this time, Su Yan directly unleashed his most powerful attack, the Sword of the Laws. The power of the laws of decay, the power of the laws of darkness, the laws of flame, the laws of ice. The power of the laws that Su Yan mastered constantly emerged at this time and then condensed to the extreme. As soon as this Sword of the Laws appeared, it was condensed to the extreme. At this moment, the boundless power was truly terrifying to the extreme. The aura of darkness rolled at this time. Boundless power appeared at this moment. The power of heaven and earth flashed at this time. The most terrifying power had begun to sentence the Dragon Emperor to death. After the dragon gods will condense into a physical body, the power that blasted out directly hit Su Yan's body. However, Su Yan did not waver at all. He still slashed out his power and killed Dragon Emperor Hilton directly. No! Dragon Emperor Hilton let out his last cry before death. At this moment, the 7 Dragon Kings saw this scene and all of them felt their scalps go numb. That was the powerful Dragon Emperor. Back then, under his leadership, they even dared to scheme against the Godslayer sword. But at this moment, this mighty Dragon Emperor was actually killed by Su Yan. At this moment, the most terrifying light emerged from the dragon tomb, heading straight for Dragon Emperor Hilton's corpse. Legend has it that the dragon tomb has a miraculous power, and can even allow the powerful dragon race. However, since I have paid such a huge price Dragon Emperor Hilton, how can I let Dragon Emperor Hilton? At this moment, Su Yan immediately understood. It seemed that the powerful power was going to allow this terrifying Dragon Emperor to complete his reincarnation. However, Su Yan had taken the attack head-on and killed Dragon Emperor Hilton. How could he give him the chance to kill Dragon Emperor Hilton? After all, after taking the attack of the dragon gods, even Dragon Emperor Hilton had suffered serious injuries. Small world, collect. At this moment, Su Yan opened up his small world. A terrifying devouring power came and started to devour Dragon Emperor Hilton's soul and body. In this way, Dragon Emperor Hilton completely lost the possibility of being reincarnated. However, Su Yan was not satisfied with this. All the dragon's resentment, return to my small world. He shouted. At this moment, he wanted to devour all the dragon's resentment in this place. This was really daring. It was challenging the dragon race's bottom line. At the same time, his cloudy mist technique was activated to the extreme. The moment he stepped into the Saint Venerate, Su Yan's cloudy mist technique was the most powerful healing ability in this world. At this moment, a silent roar was heard. When the roar first appeared, it was like a muffled thunder. Such a terrifying power rolled in at this moment. The terrifying aura had reached an extreme level at this moment. The power of darkness had become incomparably dense. It was the most powerful power, and the endless power of destruction appeared. Speaking of the power of destruction, Su Yan had already comprehended the power of destruction from the Shura King, Lord of Destruction, when he was in the world of Shura. That was an extremely powerful and extreme power. However, compared to the power of destruction in front of him, the difference was too great. There was no comparison at all. Is it finally going to descend? Su Yan's eyes reflected an extremely terrifying light. It was also a high fighting spirit. Because he knew that at this time, the dragon god of destruction was finally going to descend. Even the Dragon King was an extremely precious existence to the dragon race. Not to mention, today, he had killed a dragon emperor. At this time, he was even going to devour the dragon's resentment in the dragon tomb. In this way, the great dragon of destruction was finally going to appear from the mysterious unknown place. Lowly human, you are provoking the dignity of the dragon god. Bolts of lightning appeared one after another. It was the most terrifying eternal lightning. The appearance of such power meant that the true body of the dragon of destruction was beginning to appear. At this time, Su Yan was incomparably solemn. He knew that he was about to face the most powerful opponent. The dragon of destruction. At this time, the dragon tomb began to tremble. All the dragon's resentment was boiling. At this time, the dragon's resentment was not fear. Now, the aura was surging. Between heaven and earth, the most powerful power had begun to condense to the extreme. If you want to kill me, let's see if you have the ability. At this time, all the power in the small world had been revealed. In the past, he would not have dared to show the power of the small world in front of such a terrifying existence. But at this time, he was no longer afraid. Because he was strong enough. The small world had become his fighting force. At this time, in the small world, the regal sword codex turned into a scorching sun. It directly released endless light, illuminating Su Yan's spirit. At this time, his power showed signs of increasing again. At this time, the Taiji sword had been completely burned and released by him. Are you also starting to boil? That God-slayer sword is said to have killed gods. In that case, we are not too far apart. So what if it's the dragon god? Just kill him. At this time, Su Yan was simply ferocious. Endless power was displayed at this time. The powerful power was simply inexhaustible. Heaven and earth were only separated by this boundary. The dragon god descended, and his powerful and terrifying eyes directly stared at Su Yan. Different from what he imagined, his body was not even huge, but he was the most perfect existence in this world, and also the most terrifying power. At this time, the power of destruction was constantly rolling. You killed my dragon clan, die. These simple words had already sentenced Su Yan to death. This was the incomparably overbearing dragon of destruction. At this time, Su Yan's entire body was incomparably heavy. It was as if he had just started cultivating, but he was carrying an unimaginable weight on his body. As expected, you are very powerful. At this time, Su Yan only realized the gap between him and the dragon god. The power of a god was indeed terrifying. Do you think you can fight against me just because you have become a holy sage? I remember you. I saw the power of that traitor in you. Do you know that you are too stupid? The dragon of destruction only spoke quietly, but every word seemed to have an extremely heavy pressure, making Su Yan feel as if he could not breathe. You shouldn't have forced me to come out ahead of time. Although coming out ahead of time is an enormous loss for me, and my power is unable to reach its peak, it is still too easy for me to kill you. At this time, he did not take Su Yan seriously at all. Such a powerful force directly suppressed Su Yan, and the power of destruction seemed to be eroding him at all times. This made Su Yan extremely painful. At this time, the 7 dragon kings directly prostrated themselves. They were powerful dragon kings, but they were also believers of the dragon god. Now, their great god had finally descended, which made the entire dragon clan extremely excited. This time, that traitor will not appear. I am not afraid to tell you that his resurrection plan has long been under our control. It is impossible for him to return to this world again. So now, you can go first. At this time, he gently waved his claws. The most terrifying power directly condensed at this moment. If this power fell, Su Yan would not be able to block it. Su Yan also knew this in his heart. However, at this time, a teasing voice was heard. Hee hee, kid, every time I see you, you are so embarrassed. TSK, TSK, tisk. When this voice appeared, the pressure on Su Yan's body became lighter. Then, the voice sounded again, "Ah, you rotten old things, do you like to bully young people the most? Ha, this is too funny. However, Dragon of Destruction, do you really think you are invincible?" At this moment, a force directly entered from the outside, and then broke through the powerful aura of the Dragon of Destruction. Then, it came to Su Yan's side. Yo, long time no see. Although you are embarrassed, you have become so powerful at this time. This is really surprising. Su Yan looked at the guy in front of him. Chapter 1342. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Even Su Yan, who had become a sacred venerate, was no match for the Dragon God. The Dragon God's power was terrifying. His aura flickered and suppressed Su Yan to the point where he could not breathe. If this continued, Su Yan might be killed today. After all, the power of a god was still too strong. However, things took a turn for the worse. The God-Slayer sword appeared. Back in the Shura realm, the God-Slayer sword had left as if it had something important to do. Now, it had finally returned. The current god-slaying sword was many times stronger than it was back then. That terrifying aura permeated the air at this moment, displaying his terrifying majesty. Even with the dragon god's aura suppressing it, it still managed to break through. The moment it appeared, the Dragon of Destruction's terrifying aura had been reduced by half. God-Slayer. At this moment, even the Dragon of Destruction revealed an extremely solemn aura. No one could ignore the God-Slayer sword, not even someone as powerful as him. That was because the God-Slayer sword was too terrifying. Its battle record was too glorious. Why was it called the God-Slayer sword? It was because it had once killed a god. Moreover, it was a powerful god that had merged with heaven's will. At this moment, the God-Slayer sword's power might not have fully recovered. However, as long as it existed, its deterrence could not be ignored. God-Slayer sword, could it be that you want to help that kid? The Dragon of Destruction asked directly. Naturally, he was wary of the God-Slayer sword. However, this fear did not reach the level of fear. After entering, Su Yan had acted so presumptuously and killed a powerful dragon emperor right in front of him. To the dragon clan, this was a huge loss. At this moment, the world had changed. The ambitions of the three dragon gods were about to be carried out. A dragon emperor's usefulness was immeasurable. However, it had been killed directly. God-Slayer chuckled and said, "Firstly, I really do want to help this kid. Secondly, I really do hate you, reptile." Deity-slaying sword's words were so overbearing that he didn't leave any room for negotiation. He had always been like this, powerful and domineering. At this moment, no matter how good-tempered the Dragon of Destruction was, it was impossible for him to compromise with the God-Slayer sword. Besides, he had never been a good-tempered person. At this time, Su Yan's power began to flicker. His aura landed directly on the God-Slayer sword. Back then, Su Yan had almost become the scabbard of the God-Slayer sword. No matter what, there was already a tacit understanding between the two parties. Not bad. You've already become a holy sovereign. You're qualified to fight alongside me. His words were filled with a strong sense of goodwill, and then his power directly rushed to the sky. At this moment, his power was displayed directly. The most violent power had reached an extremely terrifying level. At this time, the power of darkness surged, and an endless aura manifested. No need to talk nonsense, you reptile. Let's fight. If you have the ability, then kill me. The God-Slayer sword directly merged into Su Yan's body. At this moment, Su Yan's aura changed, and his will reached the most terrifying level. Such a berserk power was many times stronger than what he had displayed before. At this time, the terrifying aura continued to fluctuate. Arrogant. The dragon of destruction directly attacked. At this time, he would not give Su Yan any more chances. At this time, his power was displayed directly. Such power surged, and the power of destruction once again suppressed Su Yan. Utmost exalted, void. At this moment, Su Yan unleashed another attack. This was a power he had never used before, because in the past, Su Yan's strength was not enough to use this move. At this time, when he merged with the God-Slayer sword again, his power had broken a certain limit, and this move finally appeared. Such power surged, and the power of destruction dissipated under this attack. This place is too quiet. Let's go somewhere else. At this time, Su Yan directly used the Supreme Sword teleportation and went out of the dragon's tomb. Don't even think about escaping. The power of the dragon of destruction directly followed him. At this time, he would never let Su Yan escape. If Su Yan left the dragon's tomb and then went on a killing spree on Dragon Island, this was not what he wanted to see. This dragon's tomb was indeed an extremely mysterious place. After the power of the dragon of destruction was activated, a power directly emerged and wrapped Su Yan. Then, a cage began to appear. Since you're here, then don't leave. You'll die here. Also, God-Slayer sword, do you think you're still the God-Slayer sword in the hands of the Lord of Heaven? The dragon of destruction snorted coldly and then used all his power. At this time, his aura was extremely strong. Ha ha ha, worm, the three of you want to become immortal and even want to challenge the 5 great kings, but in the end, your vitality was greatly damaged by the younger generation of your own clan. At this time, you still dare to talk nonsense. What a joke. The God-Slayer sword directly counterattacked. Back then, the dragon of destruction, the dragon of eternity, and the dragon of time, the 3 dragon gods were extremely powerful. When they existed at the same time, it was almost the peak of the dragon clan. At that time, they even wanted to reverse the heavens and become the world will of the infinite world. However, the appearance of the great demonic dragon caught them off guard. Then, they were directly lost in the great battle. However, the 3 dragon gods were obviously unwilling to give up just like that, so they planned for many years. In fact, the God-Slayer sword actually knew that it was not time for the 3 dragon gods to appear at this time. Their plan was not completely successful. However, this time, Su Yan was so aggressive that the dragon of destruction had no choice but to appear. You 3 wretched old worms, do you really think that I don't know that you want to stop the great demonic dragon from reviving and then devour his origin? Ha, it's funny to say that this dragon tomb has actually become your private property. The powerful dragon souls of the entire dragon clan are buried in the dragon tomb. But you want to devour all of them and then reach the pinnacle of your strength. Why did the great demonic dragon go against you back then and even be regarded as a traitor by you? It was because he discovered your conspiracy. The God-Slayer sword was almost omniscient and directly said these things. At this time, Su Yan also finally understood why the great demonic dragon became a traitor of the dragon clan. In that case, it's not the great demonic dragon who betrayed us, but these 3 old guys, Su Yan said directly at this time. The great demonic dragon betrayed the 3 of them, but the 3 of them betrayed the entire dragon clan. However, the living dragon clan did not know this at all. Instead, they regarded the great demonic dragon as a traitor of the dragon clan. Even the black dragon was regarded as a disgrace by the dragon clan. You talk too much nonsense. We want to reverse the heavens and restore the glory of the dragon race. What's the point of sacrificing those dead undead? Even those living dragons should make sacrifices for the future. The dragon clan was really a selfish race. For the sake of their own ambitions, they did not even care about the lives of their own kind. Even in their words, they were so righteous. Ha, idiot, I just like to talk. Kill me if you can. The God-Slayer sword directly retorted. Then, Su Yan directly cooperated with the God-Slayer sword, and another force directly appeared. This sword was not aimed at the Dragon of Destruction. Instead, it rushed toward the 7 Dragon Kings. First, I'll kill these 7 little worms. Damn it, back then, they actually dared to scheme against me. The God-Slayer's sword was obviously a person who held a grudge. Back then, he was schemed against by the 7 Dragon Kings, which was the greatest humiliation to him. A mere Dragon Emperor and 7 Dragon Kings had schemed against him. This made God-Slayer lose face. At this moment, light flashed in his eyes. That most terrifying power had reached its peak at this time. Su Yan's murderous intent spread out and formed a visible network. Damn it, the Dragon of Destruction roared. The Dragon Emperor was already dead, and even his soul was taken into Su Yan's small world. He could not let this Dragon King die again. His power of destruction blocked the network directly, and then he shouted, "Leave this place." The Dragon clan was naturally extremely powerful, but it was not easy for them to grow. If the 7 Dragon Kings were killed by Su Yan and the God-Slayer sword, it would have a huge impact on his plan. At this time, the 7 Dragon Kings were actually terrified. When facing other enemies, they were extremely powerful, high and mighty, and looked down on others as ants. However, at this time, Su Yan was stronger than them. This was the cruel reality. Therefore, at this time, they had become the prey. Now, in order to survive, they had to leave this place. Otherwise, in the battle between Su Yan and the Dragon of Destruction, they would only be a burden. Ha ha ha, you want to leave now? Su Yan laughed loudly, and his gaze fell directly on Brigadier. They were all old enemies, and at this time, there was no need to be polite. At this time, his power surged, and another sword aura appeared. Su Yan's strength was already very terrifying, and killing a Dragon King was no problem at all. At this time, the God-Slayer's sword and him merged, and his strength broke through the limit. Even a powerful Dragon of Destruction could not do anything. Therefore, the power of this sword was unimaginable. The speed of the sword aura was so fast that it had reached Brigadier's side in an instant. Block it. At this time, the Dragon of Destruction condensed the power of the Dragon Tomb and turned it into a light shield. Chapter 1343. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. However, at this moment, Su Yan laughed and said, "Old worm, I'll keep them alive for now. I'll come back another day." When the power of the Dragon's Tomb condensed into a shield of light, the suppression on Su Yan naturally weakened. At this moment, Su Yan directly turned the blade of his sword and slashed open a gap. He directly charged into the gap and left the Dragon's Tomb. Both Su Yan and the God-Slayer's sword knew very well that they were no match for the God-Slayer's sword at this moment, especially when they were in the Dragon's Tomb. This Dragon's Tomb had existed since time immemorial. It was definitely not just a place with commemorative meaning. During the battle just now, Su Yan and the God-Slayer's sword had actually already noticed that the terrifying will in this place was getting stronger and stronger. The terrifying aura almost drowned them directly. It was just that at that time, the feeling was still very shallow. Of course, it was not because the power in this place was insufficient, but because it was suppressed by the Dragon of Destruction. It wanted to erupt this terrifying power in an instant and deal a fatal blow to the two of them. The Dragon of Destruction could be said to be sinister. However, Su Yan and the God-Slayer's sword had both experienced countless battles and fought with many powerful existences. Therefore, they were extremely sensitive to danger. Damn it, Godslayer sword, you actually ran away at this time. How embarrassing. At this moment, his will directly descended, and the powerful aura of the Dragon of Destruction enveloped them. At the same time, his words directly pierced Su Yan and the Godslayer sword's hearts. Ha ha ha, old worm, you don't even feel embarrassed about sneaking up on the younger generation. What do I have to be afraid of? TSK TSK TSK, you piece of trash. If you have the ability, let's fight outside the dragon's tomb. The Godslayer sword responded to the Dragon of Destruction. The Godslayer sword's power was already extremely strong, but Su Yan felt that the Godslayer sword's skin was even more terrifying. His skin was so thick that it was unparalleled in the world. At this time, if the Dragon of Destruction wanted to use words to provoke the Godslayer sword, wouldn't it be a joke? Ha ha ha, after I get out, I'll capture the dragon descendants with the most potential and roast them. Not only that, I'll hold a dragon banquet so that everyone can eat dragon meat. Ha ha ha. The Godslayer sword, the Dragon of Chaos Island translation, the Dragon of Destruction translation, the Godslayer sword's words, but his words at this moment, the Dragon of Destruction was almost angered to death. At this moment, the dragons dragon translation of the dragon translation dragon translation of dragon translation roar. 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 Roar, countless dragon roars resounded throughout the heavens and earth. Such a power was simply incomparably powerful. That terrifying power directly descended at this moment, and the most terrifying power gathered at this moment. At this time, the dark aura was extremely powerful. The endless power of light was constantly changing at this time, as if it had turned into a terrifying shadow. Such power could almost devour everything. The most powerful and special power was simply unimaginable. That terrifying aura continued to manifest at this time, turning into a terrifying shadow. Damn it, Su Yan, let's go quickly. After leaving the dragon's tomb, the Godslayer sword saw this and immediately cursed. This dragon island is not simple. There is an unimaginable great power in it. Perhaps it was set up by the ancestral dragon of the dragon clan. The dragon's roar is to stimulate this kind of power. At this time, Su Yan still did not understand the meaning of the two words ancestral dragon. However, to be able to make the Godslayer sword so nervous, this was obviously a very terrifying power. This time, the reason he came here was to save people. His goal had been achieved. In this case, leaving Dragon Island was not a big deal. Okay. At this time, Su Yan's regal sword teleportation reached its limit in an instant, and then flew to an extremely distant place. In fact, at this time, on Dragon Island, dense space defenses had been set up. At this time, space travel was almost impossible to use. However, at this time, Su Yan was using the regal sword teleportation, not the space escape technique. Although the regal sword teleportation was not a means of space travel, in short bursts, it was more terrifying than space travel. When they left the range of Dragon Island, the Godslayer sword immediately began to observe Su Yan. Tisk, TSK, TSK. You're really amazing. I can't feel the layout of those guys on your body. You can actually break free from fate. You're really amazing. Originally, it thought that Su Yan could reach the peak of the Emperor realm. It even thought that Su Yan might have already fallen. Then, he became someone else's chess piece. However, it did not expect that Su Yan could change so much. Not only was he still alive, but he even broke free from its control and became a new person. It's just luck. I really did almost die. Su Yan smiled bitterly. His experience in the shadow world was indeed extremely dangerous. If there was the slightest mistake, he would have died completely. However, it was fortunate that he had managed to pull through. Moreover, he had profited from this disaster. He had managed to survive amidst death, allowing himself to reach an extremely terrifying level. At this time, Su Yan was simply unbelievably powerful. At this moment, Su Yan's strength was directly displayed. That frightening and terrifying strength seemed to have reached the pinnacle. The power of darkness and the Black Lotus battle armor began to fade. The power of the Dark War God. Damn, you really know how to provoke people. You even provoked that guy. The God Slayer's sword was shocked. Su Yan did not comment. A lot of trouble comes to me. However, since trouble has come to me, I won't be afraid. I'll just face it. Su Yan's answer was very calm. At this point, he was no longer the Su Yan of the past. Ha ha ha, that's right. But this time, that guy, the Dragon of Destruction, will probably be so angry that he's sick. Hee hee, it's really satisfying. I really want to go back and see his face at this time. The Godslayer's sword laughed, but then it said, Su Yan, don't underestimate the 3 dragon gods because of this. The Dragon of Destruction just now may have only displayed 70% of his strength at most. Su Yan raised his eyebrows. If the Godslayer's sword had not arrived at the critical moment, he probably would not have been a match for the other party. However, at this time, the Godslayer's sword said that the other party may have only displayed 70% of his strength. What kind of concept was this? Senior, did you just say that the 3 dragon gods are attacking the great demonic dragon? If it were not for the Godslayer's sword, Su Yan would not have known about the grudges of the dragon race at this time. Yes, as I said before, the 3 dragon gods are ambitious. They want to reverse the will of heaven and become eternal overlords, but their ambitions are huge, and their strength is insufficient. At the very least, they are not a match for the 5 lords of heaven. In order to make their strength reach the strongest level, they have the idea of using the dragon tomb. Almost all the pure-blooded dragons will return to the dragon tomb after death. This is not only a kind of spiritual sustenance, but also a way to use their dragon's soul to nourish the dragon tomb and continue the luck of the entire dragon race. The dragon race has existed for too long. Even I don't know how long it has been, so the power in it is almost unimaginable. Even if it were the 3 dragon gods, it would be impossible to extract all the power from it and absorb it into their own bodies. Therefore, they began to make secret arrangements. However, the great demonic dragon appeared out of nowhere. This guy is extremely talented, and he can even threaten the 3 dragon gods. He also knew the purpose of the 3 dragon gods, so he naturally became a thorn in their side. They wanted to kill the great demonic dragon, but they did not expect that the great demonic dragon's luck and strength were both heaven-defying. Not only did he not die, but he became more and more courageous as he fought. At this time, he can no longer be killed. The Godslayer's sword gloated, but at this time, Su Yan could feel the danger of the great demonic dragon. 1 dragon god was already so powerful, let alone 3 dragon gods. Senior, do you think we should help the great demonic dragon? At this time, Su Yan directly said. Now, he and the dragon race were complete enemies, and there was no room for negotiation between the 2 sides. Therefore, at this time, the enemy of one's enemy was one's friend. Moreover, he did have some karma with the great demonic dragon, so this was the perfect time to help. Are you sure you want to help the great demonic dragon? However, do you know where the great demonic dragon is? The Godslayer sword asked directly. Su Yan was speechless for a moment. Indeed, although he knew that the great demonic dragon was returning from the netherworld, he did not know the exact location of the great demonic dragon. After all, the netherworld was also an extremely vast world. Even someone as powerful as him could not detect the existence of the netherworld. However, it is not impossible. Among the dragon race, there is an extremely great existence who can calculate the secrets of heaven. As long as you can get him to help, then you may be able to know the whereabouts of the great demonic dragon. The God-Slayer sword said directly. At this time, Su Yan's heart moved, and a name appeared in his mind. He immediately blurted out, "Senior, are you talking about the Sky's secret elder?" The God-Slayer sword said, "Yes, it is the Sky's secret elder of the Sky's secret pavilion. This branch is really amazing. They also received the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven, and they are extremely powerful in calculating the secrets of heaven. If that guy can help, then this will not be a problem." Chapter 1344. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Back then, he had set up a great formation in the Heavenly Clouds sect. However, that great formation had still been broken. Only the most powerful people could break it. No matter how great the formation was, it was useless. Therefore, it was better to just let Yun Wanqing and the others suffer and live in Su Yan's small world. Fortunately, Su Yan's small world had evolved the power of the sun and the moon. Although it could not be compared to a real great world, it was enough to support the heaven and earth organization. "Senior, you know where the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets is, right?" Su Yan asked. The God-Slayer sword chuckled and said, "Since I made this suggestion, of course I know where the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets is. Let's go, I'll show you the way." As soon as he finished speaking, a star chart appeared in Su Yan's knowledge sea. The Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets is actually there. Su Yan was also a little surprised. This place was extremely dangerous. Before the great changes in the 5 counties, this place was actually unknown and ignored by everyone. Later, when the spirit chi in the 5 counties changed, this place directly showed how terrifying it was. This place had a name, and that was the Great Maelstrom. The terrifying maelstrom was connected to the sky and contained unimaginable power. Such an aura was simply endless and immeasurable. When such power was displayed directly, it had a terrifying destructive power. Even sovereigns would die if they got close to it. And the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets was actually next to the Great Maelstrom. This was really hard to imagine. The Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets has existed for a very long time. It is the true inheritance of the Lord of Heaven. It would be strange if it didn't have such a method. The God-Slayer sword smiled proudly, as if this was something that he was very proud of. The Heavenly Sage sect was the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven, and the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets was the inheritance of the Lord of Heaven. If he remembered correctly, the Demon Lord said that the Lord of Heaven used the God-Slayer sword to kill Shuritiani. However, Su Yan did not ask about the God-Slayer sword. Under the Regal sword teleportation technique, distance was no longer a problem. In just a short period of time, Su Yan had already arrived in front of the whirlpool. The terrifying maelstrom was still blowing at this moment. That kind of heart-palpitating power was simply unimaginable. Such a terrifying aura was indescribable. This power continued to circulate, and the aura that was projected from it was simply endless. At this moment, the power of darkness continued to expand. The most terrifying power had reached an extreme level. As Su Yan stood in the middle of the whirlpool, he could feel the ferocious power slicing at his body, as though it was trying to tear him apart. However, at this moment, Su Yan was a powerful holy venerate. Those auras could not get close to him. It was at this time that a huge palace suddenly appeared beside the great maelstrom. There was an extremely majestic aura within the palace. It was majestic and vast. Vaguely, it did not lose out to the Dragon Island. As expected, it's still the same. At this moment, the God-Slayer sword let out a sigh. It seemed to be lamenting the past. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying thunderbolt suddenly brewed beside the maelstrom. What's going on? At this moment, the God-Slayer sword and Su Yan's expressions changed. This power that suddenly appeared was simply too powerful and too terrifying. From the moment it condensed to the moment it fell, it took only a breath. Oh no, the Tianji Pavilion is in danger. Su Yan immediately realized that this power had descended to deal with the Tianji Pavilion. The power of such an attack almost surpassed the terrifying power of the Dragon of Destruction in the Dragon's Tomb. Su Yan wanted to stop this power from falling. Unfortunately, his power could not get close at all. Such an aura was simply terrifying to an indescribable degree. The thick aura directly soared into the sky, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Damn it! The Godslayer's sword was also furious. It could be seen that it had special feelings for the Tianji Pavilion. The moment that thunderbolt fell, the Godslayer's sword directly flew out from Su Yan's body. It reverted to its original form and directly slashed down with its terrifying sword. The powerful and terrifying impact rushed towards the thunderbolt. Such an attack was only able to offset a portion of the thunderbolt's power. More of the power continued to fall, directly attacking the Tianji Pavilion. At this moment, the Tianji Pavilion immediately became silent. The Tianji Pavilion, which was originally extremely glorious, was now in such a state. It was simply unimaginable. Damn it, who is it? Damn it! The Godslayer's sword was furious. It was once such a powerful and terrifying existence that it even killed the god of heaven's will of the world of Shura. However, at this moment, it did not even know who was attacking the Tianji Pavilion. It was simply furious to the extreme. If it found out who was attacking the Tianji Pavilion, it would not care about anything and would destroy everything. Senior, quickly go to the Tianji Pavilion. At this time, Su Yan directly rushed into the Tianji Pavilion. At this time, the huge Tianji Pavilion had been reduced to ruins, and black smoke was still constantly rising. Such power was truly terrifying. It could be seen that the Tianji Pavilion itself had an extremely terrifying formation, but at this time, it was directly destroyed. The power of one person was so strong. The Tianji Pavilion was empty, and there was no one inside. There was not even a breath of life. Su Yan quickly spread out his divine consciousness, but it was to no avail. However, just as he was about to give up, a thought radiated out. You guys have finally come. The appearance of this voice surprised both Su Yan and the Godslayer sword. Tianji Z. The Godslayer sword recognized this voice and directly went into the depths of the Tianji Pavilion. In the Tianji Pavilion, an old man was sitting cross-legged quietly. At least from the outside, Tianji Z should be safe and sound. Ha, you old thing are not dead yet. This is great. At this time, he almost laughed out loud. Godslayer sword, I trust you have been well. The Tianji elder and the Godslayer sword were indeed acquaintances. I'm not dead yet, I'm not dead yet. The Godslayer sword directly said. However, at this time, the Tianji elder changed the topic. Unfortunately, I'm going to die. He seemed to be teasing the Godslayer sword. The Godslayer sword turned into its human form and said, You little old man, what nonsense are you talking about? He gently patted Tianji Z's body, but this pat made him stunned. At this time, Tianji Z's body had turned into nothingness. How can this be? At this time, he was really shocked. He actually did not notice that Tianji Z had changed so much. His whole body had turned into nothingness, and even his breath was gradually disappearing. I know the purpose of your visit. Indeed, the great demonic dragon is extremely important and cannot be allowed to die like this. So, this is the whereabouts of the great demonic dragon that I have divined for you. However, you must be careful, the 3 dragon gods are not to be trifled with. The Tianji elder's voice became extremely weak, as if it would disappear at any time. Actually, from the day the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion came into existence, we were destined to face this calamity. Therefore, you don't have to feel sad. I'm going to follow Master. From the beginning to the end, he did not even glance at Su Yan. At the instant he finished saying those words, he disappeared. Then, the entire Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion also disappeared. No, no. At this moment, the god-slaying sword let out a terrifying roar. He couldn't imagine that an old friend of his would die just like this. Moreover, he died right in front of him. This was something he couldn't accept. Who is it? What kind of existence dares to kill the Tianji elder? His killing intent was unparalleled. This was the God-Slayer sword, which had extremely strong and terrifying power. When his killing intent surged, even Su Yan could feel a chill. Senior, maybe we can ask someone. At this time, Su Yan sighed and said directly. The God-Slayer sword suddenly turned and said, Who? Ancient Demon Shrine, Black Tortoise Prime. Su Yan said a name directly. The Tianji elder was said to be omniscient in his divination. Among the demon clan, there was also a great wise man, and that was the one from the ancient demon shrine. That's right. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten. That old turtle is a guy who has existed since time immemorial. He's been around for even longer than the 3 dragon gods. He'll definitely know. Even as the two of them were talking, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion had completely vanished. How can this be? Su Yan was surprised that such a huge building would disappear into thin air. Sigh, actually, you still don't understand. Knowing the secrets of the heavens is an extremely heaven-defying matter, so there has always been only one Tianji Z in the Tianji Pavilion. Those disciples of his are only his fantasies. Hearing the God-Slayer sword's words, Su Yan's mouth twitched. Fantasies. In other words, it was to confuse the false with the real, to turn one's fantasies into reality. After so many years, no one could see through it. This showed how powerful this Tianji Z was. However, he still died under a bolt of lightning. However, Tianji Z, it's fine that you're dead, but you still told me the answer I wanted. That's why you're so kind. Hee, don't worry, I will definitely avenge you. At this time, the God-Slayer sword's aura surged, appearing very terrifying. Su Yan, I have found almost all the fragments of my body, so I need your help. This time, he returned to the infinite world not only for revenge, but also for his own purpose. Senior, as long as I can help, I will definitely not refuse. The God-Slayer sword said, I need to reforge my sword body, so I want you to reforge me. This is the fundamental purpose of my return. Chapter 1345. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. After the God-Slayer sword was shattered, it was impossible for it to recover its combat strength. There was a saying that a broken mirror could not be restored. It was the same for swords. Right now, the god-slaying sword was already extremely powerful and terrifying. However, it was still not enough. To a true powerhouse, even the slightest imperfection was unacceptable and unacceptable. Therefore, he needed to reforge his own body. Senior, I'm afraid I'm not up to the task. Su Yan sighed. He also wanted to help the God-Slayer sword. After all, the God-Slayer sword had helped him a lot in the past. If it were not for the God-Slayer sword's sudden appearance, he would have died. However, even though he had become a sacred venerate, he was still not qualified to refine the most powerful divine sword in history. He had already experienced the strength of the dragon god. There was still a huge gap between his strength and the dragon gods. However, the Lord of Heaven was a powerful existence that could suppress the dragon god. In this world, only a super expert like the Lord of Heaven could refine the God-Slayer sword. Moreover, Su Yan speculated that even the Lord of Heaven could not refine it. No, Su Yan, you can do it. Of course, I'm not talking about now. You're not strong enough yet. You need to break through the sacred venerate realm and become a god. You should understand that you're different from all the experts in this world. You have the revered sword soul in your body. That's the true ultimate power of the world. The Godslayer sword said to Su Yan, that's another kind of ultimate power I've felt. Back then, I did want to refine you into a scabbard, but I didn't do so. It's not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have the ability. I feel that the sword soul in your soul is an unimaginable supreme law. When he said this, his entire person revealed an incomparably dignified expression. Back then, the power that he had sensed was simply incomparably powerful and incomparable. Therefore, not only did he not kill Su Yan, but he also lived in Su Yan's sea of consciousness, observing and learning the power of the revered sword soul. Unfortunately, he was not Su Yan after all. The revered sword soul seemed to be extremely guarded against him, so what he could learn was extremely limited. However, even with that being the case, it was still extremely precious to him. This time, he was able to recover to such a level largely because of the regal sword soul. If it had not been for the Taishang sword spirit, it would have been difficult for him to do so. He had learned a new principle from the revered sword soul, which was why he had a new understanding. However, in the end, he still had his limitations, and that was that he was a divine sword and not a natural living being. However, it was not that he did not have a chance to improve. If he could recast it, he would be able to recover his past strength. However, to him, just recovering his past strength was not enough. He was extremely ambitious. What he wanted was to reach the most powerful realm and surpass his past self. Therefore, he placed all his hopes on Su Yan, because only Su Yan had the possibility of helping him surpass his past self. Senior, if I can do it, I will definitely not refuse. Su Yan did not refuse, but he did not agree directly. After all, helping the Godslayer sword break through was not an easy task. Moreover, this also involved his foundation, which was the regal sword soul. At this point, the revered sword soul was almost his soul. Even if his pocket dimension was destroyed, he could not let his revered sword soul be affected in any way. Alright, this matter cannot be rushed. Let's talk about it in the future. However, at this time, let's go to the ancient demon shrine first. I hope that old tortoise knows what's good for him. Otherwise, I will not only kill him. At this moment, the Godslayer sword was filled with murderous intent. Tian Jizi's death was a great pain to him. In the past, the ancient demon shrine was a terrifying forbidden area because there were extremely powerful demons in this place. Not to mention others, the terrifying Black Tortoise Prime was already an extreme existence in this world. However, at this moment, Su Yan and the Godslayer sword had become one. Therefore, he had the courage and capital to take a risk. Moreover, they were not here to fight this time. They were just here to seek a result. Su Yan arrived outside the ancient demon shrine. The Godslayer sword was hidden in Su Yan's body. The ancient demon shrine was an ancient castle filled with vicissitudes. The power within was extremely strong, and there were rings of time. Powerful energy was constantly circulating. The terrifying power of light was simply unimaginable. Such a dense aura rose directly at this moment, as if it was going to soar into the sky. Indeed, every powerful force is not to be underestimated. Su Yan sighed in his heart. The reason why powerful forces could continue to prosper was related to the top experts. However, their inheritance was also extremely important. Only when powerful forces were continuously passed down could the incomparably ancient power continue to be passed down. Su Yan had already become a sacred venerate. Naturally, he was qualified to open up his strongest lineage. However, if he wanted to pass down the lineage of his own sect, it would definitely not be an easy task. It still required continuous effort and the accumulation of talents. At this moment, Su Yan released his consciousness. Junior Su Yan is here to pay a visit to Senior Black Tortoise. I would like to invite Senior Black Tortoise to meet me. Since he had a request, it was naturally impossible for him to sneak in like how he had entered Dragon Island. Instead, he asked for a meeting openly. In fact, strictly speaking, there was a connection between him and the ancient demon shrine. After the monster palace disappeared, it seemed to have been received by the ancient demon shrine. Back then, he had seen a disciple of the monster palace. It was a pity that the disciple seemed to have a deep hatred for him. He did not know if he was being manipulated. This time, Su Yan came here not only to ask the Black Tortoise for information, but also to see if his former brothers were safe and sound. All along, he had been thinking about their safety. However, at that time, Su Yan was no match for the ancient demon shrine. Even if he came here himself, he would have become a prisoner. At that time, the nine-headed demon snake was already so powerful and terrifying. Su Yan had to pay a heavy price to defeat it. The nine-headed demon snake was only one of the 9 great demon kings. It might even be the weakest one. It was obvious how powerful the ancient demon shrine was at that time. If Su Yan had come here at that time, he would have been killed immediately. Later, he entered the shadow world directly. It was not until he reversed life and death in the shadow world that he became a sacred venerate. His voice continued to spread. At that moment, a voice rose into the sky. Su Yan, long time no see. Su Yan was stunned, then a little happy. Rat Li. He recognized that it was Rat Li's voice. Back in the monster palace, Rat Li and his brother had a good relationship. They were also the first half-demons to get close to him. After so many years, he was very happy to see an old friend again. It's me. TSK, TSK, TSK. I didn't expect you to remember me. It's my honor. Rat Li's voice was very calm. It was completely different from how he used to be. Rat Li's personality was erratic, while his brother was much calmer. According to Su Yan's memory, Rat Li would never speak like that. No matter how slow Su Yan was, he could hear Rat Li's mockery towards him. Rat Li, what happened? Do you have some misunderstanding about me? Su Yan directly asked. He didn't like people speaking like this, especially when the speaker was his former brother. Ha ha ha, misunderstanding. No, I don't have any misunderstanding about you. What I want is to kill you. At that moment, he directly spoke. Within his words, a sinister intent was already revealed. This made Su Yan frown. He then asked, "Where's your brother and the others?" Logically speaking, if Rat Li was still alive, then the others should also be alive. Dong Qinghao and the others were his good friends who fought side by side with him. At this time, Shu Li asked, "Where are they?" "They're all dead. I killed them." He slowly said the last 5 words, as if he was recalling something interesting. At this moment, Su Yan's eyes suddenly emitted a ray of light. In an instant, he became incomparably cold. "Do you know what you're saying?" Su Yan's power had already slowly descended, suppressing Rat Li. Of course I know. I just killed a bunch of trash. Now, I'm going to send you on your way." In an instant, his figure disappeared. When he reappeared, there was already a terrifying aura rushing towards him. Such a light constantly circulated at this moment. Suddenly, a yellow storm appeared. This storm actually contained an incomparably terrifying poison. In an instant, Rat Li had become incomparably terrifying. An unimaginable bloodthirsty aura was directly transmitted from his body. This kind of power was simply incomparably terrifying. At this moment, a powerful dark power surged. The boundless power had already reached the most terrifying level. At this moment, the mysterious dark light directly imprisoned Su Yan. Immemorial demon technique, doomsday disaster. Shu Li let out a long hiss. In an instant, the entire ancient demon god temple responded to his power and began to boil. A powerful force directly suppressed Su Yan. No, what's happening? How can Ratley have such powerful power? This is impossible. At this moment, Su Yan was really alarmed. Chapter 1346. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to reach such a height. However, his strength had reached such a terrifying level. The sudden attack made Su Yan feel extremely pressured. It was as if such a punch could kill him directly. How is this possible? Su Yan was extremely surprised. However, at this time, he directly blasted out a punch. The berserk power erupted to the extreme at this time. The terrifying power continued to attack and blocked Shu Li's punch. What surprised Su Yan was that he was actually at a disadvantage in this attack. This was simply unimaginable. He was still a sacred venerate. The 7 dragon kings were nothing in front of him. Even a dragon emperor would be killed by him directly. The one who could defeat him was a mighty existence like the destruction dragon god. His combat strength had reached a level where it was needless to say. However, Ratley actually made him retreat with a single punch. How terrifying was his combat strength! At this time, his aura spread out. His entire person had reached the most terrifying level. This kind of strength was simply unimaginable. How can your combat strength be so terrifying? Su Yan's expression became gloomier. This was not because Ratley's strength had reached such a level. Instead, it was because Ratley's strength had condensed an unimaginably terrifying aura. This kind of strength was simply unimaginable. A ray of light condensed directly at this time. This was the most powerful force that had reached an unimaginable level. The most terrifying force in the world was surging at this time. Everything was condensed directly at this time. It was so evil. No, it could already be called evil. How could he have reached such a level? Ratley, tell me. What have you experienced? Tell me quickly. Why have you become like this? Ratley was not like this in the past. He was full of righteousness at that time. He respected and loved his brother even more. However, Ratley was now filled with unimaginable evil. He seemed to be the source of evil in this world. His aura was extremely evil and powerful. It was as if this power alone was enough to destroy everything in its path. Even Su Yan felt extremely pressured when facing him. What have you experienced? Is there any meaning to it? Su Yan, I'm not afraid to tell you that right now. I'm the ruler of this world. My strength has already exceeded your imagination, so it's impossible for you to defeat me. At that very moment, his power continued to surge. That dense power was simply berserk to the extreme. Endless aura kept flickering. The power of the heavens and earth seemed to have fused at this time. Boy, be careful. There's something wrong with this guy. Even the Godslayer's sword was extremely solemn at this time. Obviously, even the Godslayer's sword was extremely afraid of the Ratley at this time. The current Ratley was simply terrifying. That endless sinful aura seemed to want to sink everything. Su Yan, long time no see. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Just as this voice sounded, an extremely terrifying power directly rushed towards Su Yan. It was the most terrifying killing light. The dense power was simply able to pierce through everything in this world. Such power surged at this time. The heavy power of darkness and light had reached the most terrifying level. Hydralisk. At this time, Su Yan immediately recognized the owner of this voice. It was a Hydralisk. Back then, the Hydralisk had become Duan Mulonghu's lackey and followed behind Duan Mulonghu. But after Duan Mulonghu appeared a few times, the Hydralisk had already disappeared. Su Yan never expected that the Hydralisk would appear at this time with such terrifying power. The attack just now was almost enough to threaten him, a sacred venerate. In just a few years, his strength had reached such a terrifying level. It was really unimaginable. At this time, Su Yan directly dodged the sword. At the same time, an extremely deep light shone out from his eyes. Su Yan's killing intent was boiling. I didn't expect to meet you again. After seeing the Hydralisk, how could Su Yan not know that everything in the ancient demon shrine, Ratley, and Duan Wulonghu could not be separated? Ha ha ha, young master is really clever. He said that you would come here, and you really did come. However, young master has already said that even if you can come back alive from the shadow world, you will still die today. As he spoke, Ratley's evil power spread out and enveloped Su Yan. At this time, Ratley had actually joined forces with the Hydralisk. You actually joined forces with Duan Wulonghu. Then, it's true that you killed your brother and Dong Qinghao. Su Yan's face turned extremely cold. Some mistakes were absolutely unforgivable. No matter who the culprit was, they could not be forgiven. Yes, you're right. Not only that, he also killed everyone in the ancient demon shrine. The powerful ancient demon shrine has become history. Their lives have all become sacrifices for young master. In this world, only young master is qualified to rule the world and become the true Sky Emperor. The Hydralisk said directly. Su Yan's anger became even stronger, and at this moment, the Taiji sword was directly displayed. Duan Wulonghu, you're really good. His every word had turned into an icy wind, filled with unimaginably terrifying cold power. At this time, his aura surged. The power of the sacred sage turned into sunlight, piercing through the darkness. Su Yan, you're really powerful. When I first met you, I should have killed you. The Hydralisk said directly. When he first met Su Yan, he was an expert in the dragon realm, and Su Yan was far from that. At this time, Su Yan said directly, you talk a lot of nonsense. At that time, you didn't have the ability to kill me at all. Now, you're still too far away. Regal sword teleportation. Su Yan disappeared into the horizon. In the next moment, a intense soared into the sky, and a terrifying power spiraled. Countless sword blades condensed into a terrifying whirlwind. At this time, Su Yan's first target was the Hydralisk. Ratley, protect me. The Hydralisk smiled coldly, then gave the order. Ratley actually obeyed his order and went to protect him. Su Yan's attack had just landed, but it was blocked by Ratley's terrifying power. You want to kill me? How is that possible? At this time, the Hydralisk was extremely proud. How is it? Being killed by your own brother, you must be very unhappy, right? But it doesn't matter, you're going to die soon anyway, so what if you're unhappy? At this moment, his power erupted directly at this moment. The aura of darkness descended at this moment. Endless light flashed, directly breaking through everything. The most dazzling light soared into the sky. At this time, the aura between heaven and earth had reached the most terrifying level. When this terrifying attack directly suppressed him, even Su Yan felt the most violent impact. He was almost unable to withstand it. His power constantly flickered, and the light and the darkness finally began to be annihilated under the impact of the endless power. At this time, the Hydralisk also directly attacked. This guy had always been a poisonous snake in the dark, just like his name. However, no one had expected that the assassin who could barely qualify as a second-rate in the Limitless Demon sect would become so powerful and terrifying today. This kind of power was simply unparalleled. At this time, his powerful power directly turned into a point, wanting to kill Su Yan. But at this time, how could Su Yan let him succeed so easily? I've been waiting for you. Su Yan sneered. In fact, when he attacked just now, he had already calculated that he would not succeed. But he still had a trick up his sleeve. Because at that time, Su Yan had already expected that when he and Ratley fought, the Hydralisk would not let go of the opportunity to assassinate him. And in his view, that was an opportunity that belonged to him. When this terrifying attack arrived, it was a chance for him to directly counterattack. Great Elder, bind. The Hydralisk's attack came close, but Su Yan's power directly roared out. The powerful and terrifying power turned into a long snake and suddenly imprisoned him. If I can't kill Ratley, then I'll kill you first. Su Yan was already infuriated by this guy hiding in the dark. So at this time, he would not give the other party such a chance. In just one blow, he would directly kill the other party. You! The Hydralisk obviously did not expect that after being surrounded by Ratley's evil power, Su Yan would still have the energy to counterattack. His power was extremely powerful, but it was also extremely extreme. After all, he was a guy who walked in the dark. Unpresentable thing, I'll let you die today. At this time, Su Yan directly surged his power. The power of the God-Slayer sword and the Taiji sword operated at the same time. In the next moment, the most terrifying power directly annihilated the opponent. At this time, the Hydralisk only had time to let out an extremely miserable roar. Then, his life came to an end at this moment. At this time, Su Yan's power revolved. The gate of the small world opened and directly collected the Hydralisk's essence, energy, and spirit. At this moment, Su Yan's gaze directly saw through everything. Chapter 1347. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, Su Yan, do you like the gift I've prepared for you? Duanmu Longhu asked softly. He and Su Yan were separated by an unknown distance, but at this time, his voice was transmitted directly to him. Duanmu Longhu, you violated my taboo. Su Yan also transmitted his will. That's more fun, isn't it? I really didn't expect that after I threw you into the shadow world, you didn't die. Instead, it made you stronger. But that's fine. This way, I won't disappoint my old enemy. You and I will have a decisive battle in the end. So, before that, cherish your life. As his words fell, he suddenly clapped his hands, immediately severing the connection between the two. The Hydralisk was dead, but Su Yan's crisis was not over yet. Because at this time, he still had to face an extremely powerful existence, and that was Ratley. In terms of realm, Su Yan was not afraid, but Ratley's entire body was filled with the power of sin. That was an exceedingly terrifying power, with an unimaginable aura. The terror of this power was simply unimaginable. It could corrupt everything. Ratley, you still haven't come to your senses. Su Yan directly shouted, wanting to use his mental power to attack Ratley's soul. But at this time, Ratley's soul was already in chaos. Ha ha ha, come to my senses. I'm very clear-headed right now, Su Yan, don't you think I'm very powerful right now? His voice rumbled like thunder. Then, his body turned into an incomparably huge and terrifying rat. Damn it, how can I restrain it? Su Yan felt helpless. The biggest problem now was that he couldn't get close to Ratley. The power of sin could actually corrode his aura. If even Su Yan's power could be corroded, then what about others? This was truly the power of sin. It was incomparably powerful and terrifying. Su Yan, are you afraid? Ha, as expected, you'd better become my food. Don't worry, I'll let you die in pain. After all, we're good friends. I'll give you an unforgettable death. Ratley had completely lost his mind. At this time, Su Yan could only continuously dodge the attacks. Senior Godslayer, do you have any ideas? At this time, there was not much he could do. Translation. After all, this power was too evil. Sin was not easy. Was not even he could be easily. In fact, the Godslayer's Godslayer said power is the power, the Godslayer is translation Slayer God translation. The is translation translation is translation. Translation is translation is translation is is. And this was the best way to restrain this power. However, it was impossible for void beasts to exist in the 5 counties continent. This made things difficult. Rattly could not follow Su Yan into the void. In other words, even if they entered the void, they might not be able to meet a void beast, let alone a powerful void beast that could fight Rattly. Waha, I seem to hear Master teaching me. At this moment, an extremely arrogant voice was heard. It was the sea-splitting demonic snake. Sea-splitting demonic snake, you've reached such a level. Su Yan was shocked. The sea-splitting demonic snake was different from before. His body was not as big as before, but there were wings on his back. They looked like dragon wings. At the same time, his power had become extremely terrifying. He had reached the level of a holy master. Wrong, master. Please call me the sky-splitting dragon snake. At this time, he flapped his wings and flew directly over. Then, his body slammed into the body of the giant rat that Shuli had transformed into. The next moment, the terrifying power of sin spread directly toward his body. Be careful. Su Yan reminded him loudly. However, the sky-splitting dragon snake laughed and said, Be careful. Master, don't worry. It's impossible for a mere rat to defeat me. At this moment, the surface of his body flashed with a dark light. That was the power of the void. The power of the void. Su Yan was shocked. When he was in the void with Su Yan, the sea-splitting demonic snake had indeed devoured a young void beast. Therefore, his bloodline had improved and even evolved. However, evolution should not have allowed him to reach such a level. At this moment, the terrifying power released from his body was unimaginable. Such a violent aura kept fluctuating at this moment, as if the whole world was about to fall. How terrifying and powerful was this power? At this moment, all the auras and sins between the heavens and the earth had become extraordinarily silent. Guys, come out. Let our master see our strength. At this moment, the sky-splitting dragon snake roared loudly. In the next moment, the oriole appeared, followed by the double-winged sky tiger. Su Yan's 3 demonic beasts appeared at the same time. That was not all. At this moment, the bodies of the 3 demonic beasts were flashing with extremely powerful and intense power of the void. Master, don't worry. Leave this disobedient guy to us. At this moment, their power was reflected directly at this moment. The intense aura had reached its peak at this moment. Endless power was rolling at this moment. The most terrifying aura surrounded Rattly directly. At this moment, the 3 demonic beasts were surging with the terrifying power of the void beasts at the same time. This was simply unimaginable. Such a powerful and terrifying power kept rising at this moment. Previously, Rattly's power of sin was extremely terrifying. Even Su Yan had to retreat and not let this power touch him easily. But at this moment, the 3 demonic beasts appeared. Rattly was surrounded by the 3 demonic beasts and they kept attacking him. Sky-splitting dragon slash. At this moment, the sky-splitting dragon snake curled its tail and slashed down fiercely. Such power had reached the most terrifying level at this moment. The dark aura was silent at this moment. Sin turned into nothingness under the power of the void. At this moment, Su Yan directly released his aura. His divine consciousness penetrated into the ancient demon shrine. Senior, help me suppress it. I want to enter the ancient demon shrine. At this moment, the ancient demon god temple was filled with an incomparably strong power of sin. Even if the God-Slayer sword was tainted by this power, it would definitely be tainted. The God-Slayer sword was still hoping to defy the heavens and be reborn. If it was tainted by such power, it would be a great catastrophe for it. However, Su Yan's exalted power was barely able to resist this terrifying aura. Alright. At this moment, although the three demonic beasts had the upper hand, they did need a power to suppress the situation. After all, Ratley was under the control of Duan Mulonghu. Duan Mulonghu was simply too terrifying. It was not impossible for him to have set up some sort of backup plan. Su Yan went straight into the ancient demon shrine. At this moment, the ancient demon shrine had become a land of death. This place that Su Yan was afraid of, the holy land of the demon clan, was now in such a miserable state. It had to be said that Duan Mulonghu's means were terrifying. This guy seemed to be everywhere. It was as if he had set up traps everywhere. The ancient demon shrine had existed for such a long time, but this time, it had fallen, and lost so miserably. There was nothing left in this place. Su Yan saw the powerful demon gods. They had the most terrifying strength, but at this moment, their auras were weak. Clearly, they were dead. Su Yan walked step by step. The most terrifying dark power was endless, and the densest aura was revealed at this moment. The sky, the earth, and everything was surging at this moment, trying to pull Su Yan into the abyss of darkness. However, Su Yan's grand supreme power burst out, and the dense dark power was dispersed. Could it be that there's really nothing here that refuses to obey? The more Su Yan walked in, the more shocked he was. The aura here was simply incomparably terrifying. Endless power surged at this moment. The most terrifying and violent aura was also changing at this moment. The ancient demon god's hall was indeed very majestic. The power it contained made Su Yan extremely fearful. But at this moment, these mighty forces had fallen into complete oblivion. In the face of darkness, even the most powerful forces began to perish. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Su Yan kept telling himself that there must be something alive in this place. Finally, he came to the end of the ancient demon shrine. There was a huge pit here, and the most terrifying power was spreading in the pit. Such a violent and terrifying aura rolled out at this moment. The power roared continuously at this moment, almost like the roar of an angry dragon. What a terrifying power fluctuation. This shows how terrifying the battle that took place here was. Just the traces of the battle were enough to show how terrifying the battle had been. That's not right. Duan Mulonghu is strong, but his strength can't have reached this level. At this moment, Su Yan realized that something was wrong. This place was related to Duan Mulonghu, but it definitely wasn't Duan Mulonghu's power that had caused the ancient demon shrine to sink. Chapter 1348. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Just then, an aged voice sounded from the deep pit. Beloved of fate, you've finally arrived. In the dark pit, apart from the terrifying destructive power, there was nothing left. However, at this moment, an extremely weak aura appeared. This aura had completely merged from nothingness, and its power was constantly changing and condensing. The aura of the mountains and seas flickered. Such a radiance finally condensed. Su Yan was very familiar with this image. It was the Black Tortoise. The Black Tortoise Prime was one of the strongest existences. Even the Godslayer sword had said that he was terrifying. However, his aura was extremely weak at this moment. The most terrifying evil is coming. The light of darkness of the Wuji realm will appear. Whether or not we can restore the light of this world depends on you. Be careful of the. He was truly extremely weak. At this moment, he actually stopped speaking. He did not even utter the last word. Su Yan frowned slightly. Be careful of the last few words made him feel extremely uneasy. The shadow of the black tortoise disappeared and turned into a tortoise shell. That was the last remnant of the black tortoise. Senior, please enter my mini-world and rest in peace. Su Yan unleashed his power. Unknowingly, his power had already wrapped around the aura of the black tortoise. All the power between the sky and the earth had been condensed to the extreme. That kind of terrifying power had reached a terrifying level at this time. The power of darkness spiraled continuously. It seemed to have sensed Su Yan's mini-world and was about to invade it. What an all-pervasive power of sin. Su Yan flipped his palm and an aura rushed out, immediately dissipating the power. At this moment, Yun Wanqing and the others were in his mini-world. Therefore, no matter what, he could not let this power affect his surroundings. However, at least he had gained something from coming here, even if it was just an incomplete sentence. Since I've already sunk into sin, there's no longer any meaning for this place to exist. Since that's the case, let's just disappear. At this moment, Su Yan's power erupted. It was the supreme nirvanic rend. At this moment, the power of this attack had reached the pinnacle. The most violent power of the sword chi rose directly. Such power of the sword chi directly shattered everything. The entire ancient demon god temple began to crumble at this moment. Endless crushing power spread out, and the most terrifying power had completely dissipated. With the destruction of the ancient Fey god temple, the power of sin seemed to be directly devoured. But at that moment, Su Yan suddenly realized that he was being watched by a pair of terrifying eyes. Under this eye, an extremely mysterious and powerful force suddenly emerged. This force slowly came at this time, almost unimaginable. At this moment, the endless power surged out and immediately surrounded Su Yan. At this moment, even someone as powerful as Su Yan had no power to resist at all. That ray of light directly took Su Yan and completely disappeared. At this moment, everything was still collapsing. What should have sunk had completely dissipated. The thing that appeared at this place was still continuing. The collapse of the ancient demon god temple was not reversed, but Su Yan's aura had completely disappeared. After a while, Su Yan finally opened his eyes. An extremely dazzling ray of light fell directly. Such a dazzling ray of light was simply unimaginable. He suddenly realized that he was in a place that was completely different from the rest. This place did not seem to belong to this spacetime, but existed in another dimension. Su Yan looked around and suddenly realized that there was a pair of eyes staring straight at him. That gaze seemed to have the most terrifying power. It made Su Yan's heart tremble slightly. "Who are you?" Su Yan asked directly. He could feel that the owner of this gaze was powerful and terrifying. However, this existence did not make a move at this moment. This meant that he still had good intentions towards Yifutian. Demon God. These two words were not loud, but they rang directly in Su Yan's heart. Su Yan was shocked. An existence that could become a god was definitely unimaginable. There was no need to elaborate on the strength of the demon race. In the operation of heaven and earth, they played an extremely important role and played a vital role. However, Su Yan also knew that this time, the ancient demon god temple had fallen into Duan Wulonghu's trap and fallen. This meant that the fate of the demon race had come to an end. This powerful race was finally going to decline at this time. The fate of our race has finally come to an end. The demon god's voice rang out. However, at this moment, he did not sound regretful at all. Instead, he was calm. "Senior, I'm afraid you already knew all this. Since you knew, why didn't you make a move?" Su Yan believed that with the strength of the demon god, he could definitely turn the situation around. How can a deity who has already passed away be qualified to make a move? In fact, I had already predicted today's situation a long time ago. The great luck of the demon clan was cut off today, and the next to face the crisis was the infinite world. In fact, the luck of the living beings in this world is connected, and they are of the same origin. If the infinite world can survive this disaster, then our demon clan can rise again against the heavens. But if we fail, then what difference does it make whether the luck is there or not? Senior, you asked me to come here. I'm afraid you have something to tell me. Su Yan went straight to the point. Since the demon god had already fallen, his power naturally could not defy the heavens and earth. If he really had such power, Su Yan believed that he would definitely not have allowed today's events to happen. Since he had summoned him to this place, it meant that he had something to tell him. He did not believe that the demon god was so bored that he just wanted to see him. You're right. At this moment, a few rays of light suddenly appeared in front of Su Yan. This is the power of the white tiger and the power of the vermilion bird. I can already see that your small world is using the power of the 4 divine beasts to open up the mysteries of heaven and earth. Only by obtaining the power of the 4 divine beasts can your small world advance further. Su Yan did not stand on ceremony and accepted it directly. He could not refuse this at all. The things given by the demon god were too important to him. In this way, with the 4 divine beasts gathered, your power is also guaranteed. However, this is still not enough. The demon god spoke again. Su Yan said, Senior, please give me some pointers. The demon god said, perhaps you feel that you are the child of destiny and are entangled by fate, but in fact, you are an anomaly that can break all the patterns. It is also because of this that you are the key to this catastrophe. I can no longer do anything, so I will directly tell you my path to becoming a god. As for what I want you to do, that is to preserve the fate of the demon race. I know that you have 3 demonic beasts, and they can be the kings of the demon race. The demon god had summoned Su Yan here in hopes that Su Yan could preserve the demon race and not let the demon race completely decline. Without the ancient demon god temple, the demon race would be leaderless. In this battle, they would most likely be in disarray and suffer heavy losses. He knew that this situation could not be changed, but he hoped that if the infinite world could survive this, Su Yan could reverse the fate of the demon race and let his 3 demonic beasts become the kings of the demon race. Although it was impossible to restore the glory of the ancient demon god temple, it could preserve the last bit of dignity of the demon race. Su Yan did not hesitate and directly said, okay. The current situation was extremely dangerous, and Su Yan could not afford to have any doubts. At this time, he could only agree to many things. Moreover, he could not refuse this condition. After all, it was to let his demonic beasts become first-class experts. And after obtaining the power of the 4 divine beasts, Su Yan's pocket dimension could become complete. At this time, Su Yan had already guessed one thing, and that was that there must be an extremely terrifying existence supporting Duanwulonghu. When time changed, there was an extremely small fragment, and that was that an extremely terrifying dark power suddenly appeared in the ancient demon god temple. That power rushed into the ancient demon god temple. In an instant, all the restrictions in the ancient demon god temple were activated. At this time, the power that erupted was even more terrifying than the terrifying attack of the destruction dragon god in the dragon's tomb. Frankly speaking, even if Su Yan and the Godslayer sword combined their powers and used all their strength, it would be impossible to block this attack. However, such an attack was directly blocked by him. No, this was no longer as simple as being blocked. In fact, this attack was directly annihilated, because an even more powerful force appeared. That most terrifying force directly swallowed everything completely. At this moment, all the defenses of the ancient demon god temple were shattered. Such an attack was simply unbelievably powerful. The most terrifying power was churning unceasingly at this moment. Such a terrifying power was constantly manifesting, and the most terrifying aura directly descended at this moment. That violent and terrifying power directly devoured everything. Under this power, it was as if all existence was meaningless. What kind of terrifying power was this? However, this also allowed Su Yan to see the essence of that power clearly. It's that terrifying existence. At this moment, Su Yan was very sure that the power that destroyed the ancient demon god temple was the most terrifying will of the demonic world. If it was such a terrifying existence, then Su Yan could understand why such a powerful ancient demon god temple would collapse in a single night. It was because the power of that existence was truly heaven-defying. Oh no, get out of here quickly. At this moment, the demon god exclaimed. This was because at this moment, the terrifying power that clearly existed in the memories broke through the restraints and swept towards Su Yan. Su Yan was extremely shocked. This was already beyond his imagination. This power seemed to have broken the rules of space-time, and then directly attacked him. Hand over your life. This voice was so cold, and just the voice alone seemed to have performed the laws of ice to the extreme. Chapter 1349. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The two forces clashed fiercely. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Yan was shocked when he saw the two forces clashing. However, he was no longer the same person as before. He was now strong enough to interfere in such a battle. Supreme Annihilation Slash. His power condensed and a powerful sword intent took shape in an instant. The powerful aura pierced into the evil and darkness. The power suddenly bloomed. It was so dense that it wanted to break through everything. Su Yan's power and the demon god's power joined forces and finally suppressed the dark power. However, at this moment, an evil laughter rang out. Ha ha ha, Su Yan, you won't be able to escape. I will definitely devour you. The devil monarch is already dead, no one can save you now. His words had an unimaginably deep aura that stimulated Su Yan's mind. At this moment, he was a god that could dominate everything. Su Yan felt like he was a broken boat in the middle of a huge wave. He could be destroyed at any moment. The power just now was against the combination of the demon god and himself. But at this moment, that power actually shattered everything and directly pierced towards his sea of consciousness. What terrified Su Yan even more was that in the past, whenever his sea of consciousness was involved, Su Yan would launch the most intense and crazy counterattack. However, at this moment, Su Yan's power was suppressed. How is this possible? Supreme Sword Soul, wake up. At this moment, he shouted angrily and the small world shook. However, after shaking for a while, the power was extinguished. It was as if it could not break free from the shackles. Kiki, it's useless. Your power is not perfect. How can you resist my power? At this moment, the power became even more intense. The terrifying and evil aura directly condensed into a long needle at this moment, wanting to pierce through everything. Even the source of the small world seemed to want to be destroyed directly. However, at this moment, a cold snort sounded. You attacked him before I even died. You seem to be happy too early. That was the voice of the island master of the divine devil island, the devil monarch. The demon lord had suddenly appeared at this time. As such power descended, the most terrifying light turned into a palm and blasted down. This power seemed to have a great restraining effect on the evil aura. With just one blow, the power dissipated. At this moment, that evil voice rang out once more, Devil Lord, to think that you are still alive at this moment. How interesting. It's just that the current you is destined to find it hard to reverse the situation. Back then, you were the one who single-handedly created this calamity. Now, you want to make up for it, turning from a devil to a saint. Do you think that's possible? Even though the power had been repelled by the demonic art, the evil existence didn't seem to care at all, as though everything was under his control. Moreover, just from the conversation between the two of them, some information could be gleaned. At the very least, he and the Devil Monarch were old acquaintances. As for the relationship between them, it was unknown. However, in any case, he was still repelled this time. However, at this moment, Su Yan didn't have the slightest bit of joy. Instead, he became even more solemn. This guy's strength was beyond his expectations. At this moment, the God-Slayer Sword's panicked voice suddenly sounded. Su Yan, are you done? Quick, there's a big problem here. Su Yan's heart trembled. He had never heard the God-Slayer Sword so panicked. One had to know that even when the God-Slayer Sword was schemed against by the 7 Dragon King, it wasn't like this. I have passed on everything to you, and from now on, I will completely disappear. As someone who is about to completely disappear, I hope that you can work hard for this world. Even if it's just for a certain memory of the past, you must not let this world fall. The demon Immortal, who was once an expert, had completely fallen. At this moment, Ratley had undergone a huge change. Originally, he had been suppressed by Su Yan's 3 demonic beasts and seemed unable to resist. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly appeared from his body. Within his body, a petal actually bloomed. That petal had an indescribable beauty, but the power within it was frightening. It was the most terrifying evil in this world. It was as if as long as that petal existed, everything in this world would be completely annihilated. Such a terrifying power was surging at this moment. The dense aura was simply unimaginable. The radiance of the sky and earth seemed to be swallowed by this petal at this moment. Another moment passed, and the light of the sun gradually dimmed. The world was about to be swallowed by darkness. Su Yan left the ancient demon shrine. He witnessed such a change and was extremely shocked. He knew that the calamity had finally arrived. Such a terrifying power descended directly, as though it was going to swallow the entire world. That's the flower of sin. You can't stop it. Hurry up and leave. The demon lord's voice sounded at this moment. Su Yan was also shocked. This was the first time he had heard this term. However, the moment he heard this term, he knew that it was an extremely terrifying power. An endless amount of power surged at this moment. Ratley's body directly materialized at this moment, turning into the flower of sin. His entire body seemed to be changing. The most terrifying aura had almost turned into an endless amount of sin. The 3 demonic beasts near him originally had the power of the void. However, at this moment, they were swallowed up directly, without even a chance to struggle. The power of darkness was endless. Such an aura covered the sky and covered the sun. At this moment, Su Yan still wanted to rescue the 3 demonic beasts. However, at this moment, a powerful force came from the sky. That was the power of the Demon Lord. Leave this place. Otherwise, not only will you not be able to rescue them, but you will also be drowned by this power. His voice sounded, not allowing any objection. Although Su Yan's current level was very high, he was still unable to resist this power. No, I can't abandon my companions. At this moment, a power suddenly erupted from Su Yan's body, directly resisting the power of the Demon Lord. At this moment, no matter what, he couldn't abandon his companions. His 3 demonic beasts were here to help him in this battle. Not only the 3 demonic beasts, but also the God-Slayer sword. At this moment, the flower of sin bloomed and was going to swallow the entire world. However, he left at this most critical moment. Su Yan would never forgive himself. However, in merely a single second, the power emitted by the sin and sin glory grew even denser. Even Su Yan himself could feel how terrifying this power was. It seemed that in the next moment, he would also sink into it. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, heaven and earth, with the boundless laws, frees all things. The flower of sin shall not bloom. When that voice appeared, Su Yan's entire body froze. How could he forget this voice? It was the voice of the person he loved the most, Chu Linger. Ever since Su Yan left Heartless Island, he didn't know how long it had been since he last saw her. However, at this moment, she appeared. Her power directly descended like a heavenly sword. This power directly pierced into the flower of sin. At this moment, the terrifying power of sin could no longer bloom. Su Yan, I'm here. You go with the Demon Lord. Chu Linger's voice sounded in Su Yan's ears. Su Yan still couldn't believe it. Not long ago, the person who needed his protection the most had come to help him directly. Su Yan, you have to remember that you are the last hope. I have already communicated with the Heavenly Tao and become the heart of the Heavenly Tao. The flower of sin is the eternal source of sin. It's not just in the infinite world, but also in the Shura world, the shadow world, and all the other worlds. Su Yan was stunned. He hadn't expected things to come to this point. However, at this moment, he cast aside all his hesitation and followed the power of the Demon Lord. In the next moment, he appeared on the Demon Lord's Divine Demon Island. At this moment, the entire Divine Demon Island had turned into a huge Divine Demon diagram. Su Yan, I have to tell you that all sins originated from me. Therefore, I am the Demon Lord. Su Yan didn't understand. At this moment, the Demon Lord said. Back then, when the chaos was created, the Chaos Demon God wreaked havoc. In the end, many worlds were created. Among them, the Shura world, the Shadow world, and other worlds were incomplete worlds. We were afraid that the infinite world would be the same. Therefore, we created the Land of Five Lords and condensed the power of the five elements. The Land of Five Lords was formed and entered the infinite world to oppose the 9 states. Under their joint efforts, the infinite world was indeed a combination of yin and yang. The two worlds started to operate with the 2 continents as the 2 poles. However, later on, they discovered that after forcefully reversing yin and yang, a brand new force appeared. It was the demon. The word demon seemed to be born to defy everything. That force started to engulf everything. At that time, the island master of Divine Demon Island was the first to come into contact with this force. He turned himself into a demon. From then on, he became the Demon Lord. At that time, he couldn't control himself. At that time, the Fiery Lord and the Nether Lord had already gone to open up the world. Only the Heavenly Lord, the Sage, and the Demon Lord were left. The Heavenly Lord was severely injured from killing the Shura god. He was defeated by the Demon Lord and disappeared without a trace. Only the Holy Lord and the Demon Lord fought. In the end, the Demon Lord was defeated. At that time, the Demon Lord should have died. However, the Holy Lord couldn't bear to see the Demon Lord die. He sealed the Demon Lord's terrifying demonic power in the demon world. In order to purify the power of the demon world, he went deep into it. Actually, the powerful creature in the demon world is the Holy Lord. However, it is a Holy Lord who has been completely infected by the demonic power. Is that so? Su Yan was shocked. He didn't know about this karma. At this time, the Demon Lord continued, what you don't know is not only this. In fact, whether it is Duan Mulonghu, the ghost killer, or the god of the shadow world, they are all reincarnations of the Holy Lord. His goal is to merge the infinite world and all the other worlds at the same time and create a new chaotic world. That is because chaos and destruction are the essence of the Demon Lord. But, if that is the case, what should I do? At this time, Su Yan was completely shocked. While they were talking, the power of the flower of sin had begun to spread. Such an aura was extremely terrifying. The world of Shura, the shadow world, and the 9 states were all infiltrated. At this time, the infinite world should have been stabilized by Chu Linger's power of the heavenly way. However, in the next moment, it was also on the verge of collapse. Here, an extremely dark power appeared, and a terrifying aura filled the air. It was a powerful force in the deepest part of the Boundless Demon Sect. I, Yu Quan of the Boundless Demon Sect, have returned. At this time, his power was constantly rising. The powerful force directly attacked the power of the heavenly way. At the same time, in the Stupa sect of the 5 prefectures, a ray of light suddenly rushed out. I, Ancestor Stupa, have returned. These two forces were like heavenly pillars, running rampant in the sky. Even the power of the heavenly way was directly reversed. At this time, the people of the Stupa sect began to roar in pain. Their life force was directly sucked dry. It was the same for the people of the Boundless Demon Sect. You see, that Yu Quan is actually the great demon heaven lord. He has always been alive, and the same is true for Ancestor Stupa. I have already calculated that they are the power of Yin and Yang of the Holy Sage. The Holy Sage has completely lost himself, even more so than I was back then. Now, he only wants to merge the entire world. At this time, the infinite world was trembling greatly. This was because at this time, whether it was the world of Shura, the shadow world, or even the demonic world, they were all moving closer to the infinite world. Just as the Demon King had said, this guy's ultimate goal was not to destroy the infinite world, but to merge all the worlds together. Then, he would destroy everything and return it to chaos. Then what should I do? At this time, Su Yan asked directly. At this time, even he felt powerless. He had become a sacred venerate, but the changes at this time were beyond the control of a sacred venerate. However, at this time, another voice sounded. Gather all the power, condense the majesty of the Lord of Heaven, and cut off everything. When Su Yan heard this voice, he was immediately shocked because it was the voice of the great demonic dragon. Senior. At this time, the great demonic dragon appeared here. No need to be surprised. That guy has been planning for so long, and we have done nothing. Now, I will sacrifice all the power and integrate it into your body. Senior, why did you choose me? Su Yan asked directly. In fact, he already had a vague answer in his heart. At this time, another voice sounded. It was Zhang Zai's voice. At this time, Zhang Zai appeared directly. His cultivation of swordsmanship had disappeared without a trace, and his whole body was filled with unimaginable flame power. Actually, you already have the answer, because you are the Lord of Heaven. Back then, the Lord of Heaven was seriously injured, but he did not die. Instead, he left this dimensional world and appeared in another place. He wanted to find an extreme power that could completely eliminate the power of the devil. The Lord of Heaven was more farsighted than anyone else. He still predicted that the terrifying power of the devil would definitely make a comeback, and it would be unstoppable. That's right. Now, we will gather the power of the 4 great kings and integrate it into your body. At this time, the great demonic dragon had already killed Rosen and became the real Nether King. As for Zhang Zai, he inherited the power of the Flame King and became the Inferno King. In addition to the power of the demonic king, the power of the 4 great kings was combined. In an instant, the regal sword soul was directly awakened. The terrifying power was completely awakened at this time. Endless aura manifested at this time, and everything had reached an unbelievable level. At this moment, Su Yan had experienced an endless amount of vicissitudes. Everything was awakened in his heart. At this time, the voice of the woman in red from the Shura realm sounded, Su Yan, go. Senior Sister Lin. How could Su Yan forget the woman in red? She was the woman he loved the most after coming to this world. She was Lin Hualu. At the next moment, Fang Yuashan's voice sounded, my shadow origin, take it. At this moment, all the power began to pour into Su Yan. At this time, Duanmu Longhu had slowly reached the center of the world. Whether it was Yu Quan or Ancestor Buter, their auras were all condensing into his body. Because at this time, he was the true son of Sin. This chaotic world will fall under my power. Return to the embrace of chaos and destruction. Sin is where everything belongs. His power erupted, and Chu Linger's power could no longer support it. The power of the heavenly path had begun to be devoured bit by bit. However, at this time, Su Yan opened his eyes. Sin will eventually be eliminated. The world is united, and the lives of all things will not wither. Instead, it will be better. His voice was like thunder and lightning. Wherever his voice passed, the power of evil was directly dissipated. Godslayer's sword, I promised you that I would refine you. Come. At this time, Su Yan's regal sword spirit appeared between heaven and earth. The regal sword spirit had absorbed all the power and was unbelievably powerful. Then, Su Yan suddenly grabbed, and the Taiji divine sword rushed into the sky. In the next moment, all 10 divine swords flew into the sky and merged with it. At this time, the terrifying power was constantly changing. Heaven and earth are one, but the world should not return to chaos. I, as the Lord of Heaven, condense the ancient God's sword and set the laws of heaven and earth. At this time, Su Yan had gathered all the power. He had reached a terrifying level and established an immortal existence. The ancient God's sword fell directly, and the terrifying power of sin was directly dissolved. At this moment, Duanmu Longhu was in extreme pain. Within his body, countless faces began to flash. It was as if he was struggling bitterly to break free from the power of the ancient God's sword. But in the end, everything was destroyed. Under the ancient God's sword, heaven and earth were finally fixed again. The terrifying power had already divided everything. The rules were remade. Chapter 1350. The Eternal Sword Emperor has ended, and a new battlefield has opened. The new book, Eternal Venerated Monster, has been serialized, and this is an even better novel. I welcome everyone to continue supporting me. Eternal Sword Emperor has been completed, and the new book has been serialized. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update.